Hi everyone, the Mature Simmer here. So, after my experiment, this is what I found the next day. So, as I figured, we're going to have to go around and spray for weeds now that we can see them. So, let me jump into my sprayer. So, I was able to get through the spraying yesterday the way it allowed me to go. Without using a single liter of herbicide, which is good because otherwise I'd be running in a situation where I'd have to spray the field twice. But we obviously don't have that issue. So let me do my setting of the GPS. Sorry, brain's still not working well this morning. Alright, so I'm all set there. And so yeah, it looks like, once again, it's a little patchy. It certainly looks different than other fields that are around, and this is what I'm typically used to seeing. So it looks like something that I did helped yesterday, but what I'm hoping is that we're not going to see an ongoing weed issue. I would hope at this point, once I spray, I'm done for the time. So obviously we're going to go ahead and do this, but then there's going to be some checking tomorrow as well, just to make sure we suddenly don't have a new crop, because obviously that would be something that we're not looking at doing. So you can actually tell from here, now obviously this is a large group, but you can see the sprayer just puffing in certain areas. So that's the see and spray technology, where once again it's seeing a weed under a nozzle through those cameras mounted on the arm, I'm assuming, and it's going ahead and applying. So right now you can see it's doing nothing. Now you can see puffs coming out here and there. And that's the process that I've seen operate before. But, you know, we've used 15 liters of weed killer at this point, so definitely much less, much more focused. So the piece that's going to be interesting is to do what we're likely going to get here, which might be that close to 90% reduction. I may have to do what I did, which is to run through the field the day of planting and in essence prime it. I mean, I don't know what else to say. So I'm hoping not. I'm hoping that, given that I have a spot spray system and now this field should be somewhat triggered or stored in server memory as, okay, that it's been treated with spot spray before. I would hope that that would then mean that that will not be the case, because otherwise that creates you know, quite a bit of, I guess it wouldn't be quite a bit of extra work. It would just be that I would be replacing this, let's see, just not sure where this is going to align, but I'm going to go ahead and let this go. It's not doing the GPS thing. There we go. Alright, I'll turn this on, because pretty soon we're going to start to go into areas that I've not been at now that I'm locked onto the GPS line. So I think we're going to get some spraying at the far end here. So we should get, I mean, it's not visibly puffing out. So I'm just curious that sometimes it does, other times it just goes over and leaves it at that. And this could be simply because it's kind of a partial, so it's not as clear as the normal movement. I'm going to kind of go ahead and take a peek here, get a little closer. Yeah, we're not seeing it fire off yet, but this is definitely something that I'm interested in seeing how this will render itself as we go. I'm assuming once I'm back on a full track, we'll see the animation, or perhaps because I'm zoomed in, it's not as obvious. I don't know. When I did check the environmental score when I hopped on, it was still up at 98. So as far as credit for the See and Spray, I still was maintaining it, but I didn't really want to take the chance of would that change if I suddenly didn't take care of this. So let me zoom back out here and see. No, we're not seeing any more of the puffs than we did. Technically, I missed that little piece there, so I might need to circle back and do that later. I mean, the benefit of this, again, is it should use nothing if, oops, no, I'm too far over, I believe, because I see weeds over there. Alright, well, let me... I'm just not quite lined up here. So you would think that this would be tight enough, but maybe not. Okay, now it's bringing me back here, so that's not what I want. So I apologize for all the merry-go-round here. Clearly, it's a little bit more challenged. Alright, so I guess that was coming in and lining up appropriately. Just take a look here on the map. Alright, so we can clearly see the brown where we've taken out things with the spot spray. And again, let's now take a look. There we go. So now we're getting some of the puffs as we go through. So it's really just spraying when it sees something, and only then. So now we'll get a lot of activity on the other side and in the center. As we can see, looks like we've got some more patches of open field here. So it really seems to kind of require a bit more showing up before it does anything. That one came out on the left there, but I'm watching as we go over on the right, so it is not quite sure what level finally triggers that, but I'm sure it's just trying to give you some sort of a sense as opposed to being 100% accurate. Because you can see, like, it sometimes just passes over things, they turn gray, which in essence is what would have been happening with the field. You know, but now we've got a large group on the right again, and we're not really getting any spraying. Now we saw one. So I'm assuming on the left here we should get some activity. There we go. But it was still really just, 3 puffs on that entire space. So definitely very different than the traditional sprayer. And so I was, not expecting any challenges with this. I've certainly used this in testing for a moment, but it's a little different when you're on an active farm that you're working and just trying to verify that you're still getting that same function that you were doing in testing, because when I tested it was a field that was in a much later state, and and therefore was pretty significantly covered in weeds. So let's see here, we'll get ourselves moving along again and start up. But, definitely a really nice morning here on the farm. Pretty excited to see where this is going to end up. I mean, we don't have horrendous coverage of weeds here. So here's another patch we're coming up on. Let's see. Yeah, got a little puff out. It's harder to see this direction with the sun, is I think part of it. I'm wondering if if I view that way, it was very clear that one came out, but I think this way with the lighting, it's possible things are coming out, but they're not visible. So it may have been working in the other direction. It's just more of a challenge to see. So we'll take a look this way and see, because like now on this left side, there should be, oh yeah, there you go. So let me see if I've got another. I really only have this batch coming up, but if I'm here, there should be some reaction down at the left end of the arm, or right end of the arm now as I face. And as you can see, I can't see it, so it probably was working the other way. It's just the lighting, it's bouncing off the mist the other way. So we have to kind of be facing this way to see it. Alright, so I think we've got this all working. The mystery is kind of solved as to why it appeared it wasn't working the other direction. I guess it was, I just wasn't seeing it, because yeah, even here you can see little puffs here and there with the individual weeds where it's just spraying exactly where it needs to be, which is exactly what it's supposed to be doing. See and spray technology. So here we go. Like, we know it's going to fire here. So you can see it, but it's just not as obvious. So it is coming out of the nozzles. Alright, so I am going to, for the second time, and hopefully the definitive time, run this field. And as I tend to find in Farming Simulator, I'm guessing I'm also going to be seeing a situation that I need to determine of next time I'm not going to spray after I plant, because obviously I'm not looking to take any more time than I need to see then, does the field come back fully green the way we had it prior to precision farming and using this on the field at all. So meaning, am I going to see this instead of this? Because otherwise, to save the spraying, I might need to do exactly what I did, which is run it right after harvest to then get some basic coverage to keep this down. Now, that would just seem to be a busy work creation of development at that point, because there really should not be any reason that I should have to run over an empty field, use no product, but yet somehow have an effect. So, while I certainly wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth if suddenly I had a weed-free field today doing that, there was an expectation that I can't imagine they're going to have designed it that poorly that I could run around, because if it had worked and I had no weeds here today, I would have never had to use herbicide and actually consume any product to get weeds to go away. So I'm glad to see that this came out the way it did, because at least it's functioning in a way that I would deem as proper and realistic, that I've got to get out here. And the hope is that there's some sort of a tie, because I own this field and I own a spot and spray, that's what made my field look different than the others, and maybe the other FMs haven't gone ahead and changed out their sprayer for this. And so that's why they have weeds. Or it's possible because I don't own those fields, I don't see a weed map like I do on my own. There's various reasons that could be occurring. So maybe their maps look the same to them, but I don't see it. Not sure how it's working, but that's kind of the unknown quantity that it's going to take us into year 88 to resolve. It's just going to be a situation next time when we start the cycle all over again next spring, to see if I can still just do plant and fert in one pass, and then next day spray for weeds. So if I can, that'll be fine, because then it's still just 2 jobs, which is still an improvement and a decrease. And if nothing else, it does appear, I would say, that we are using less. So between the fertilizer and the seeds, I did see an improvement in cost compared to when I planted this field in wheat a few years back. So I am seeing a benefit of precision farming at this point. And right now, really the outlay is the soil testing, the Asaria Scout, and this piece of equipment. So the thing is, it might still take 10 years to kind of really break even from those purchases. I don't know, I don't really track that type of thing, but I could kind of ballpark it. Whereas if I save 10,000 in product or something a year, which is very possible with what I'm seeing with this herbicide, because at this point I think I'm going to see a huge difference in that. We'll see if it's really the 90%, because once again, I've got a sample case pre-precision farming of the exact same crop here on the field. So I'll certainly share what I see once I have this done, and I'll pop back in at the end of this video and at least give you that update of what we've actually spent versus what we've spent on this same field pre-precision farming, doing the best we could there. So I'll see you in a bit. So I believe I am complete. So there we go. A nice, beautiful, brown spotted field. Get this dropped off. Again, pull forward where it's easier to find this thing, because otherwise, you know how it goes. I suddenly can't remember where I put it. Alright, so now that I have everything in, this is the wheat situation from 2 years ago. So you can see my total cost here, nearly $46,000. And here, not a typo, you can see $32,000, and most impressively, $782 for herbicide, compared to $10,060 on that same field, same crop. The crop really shouldn't matter for herbicide, but so more than a 90% savings. But as I said, the issue to be determined is, does this change if I don't do that original same planting day spray? Will this increase substantially? You know, even if it doesn't increase substantially, if I get it to, even if it doubled, if it was 1,400 instead of 10,000, that would be an incredible victory. But most importantly, we won't have any liquid fert. You know, but if we look at seed, 15,000 compared to 15,900, 15,300, so there was a slight improvement. That could just be other things other than the impact of precision farming. And 16,000 in total fertilizer, where here we had almost 20,000, so we saved about $4,000 in fertilizer as well. So looking pretty good. Definitely things will pay for themselves pretty quickly. But at this point, as I jump back out here to the field and we're looking at our wheat, we've got growth stage 2 of 7. And as you can see, you know, pH, which is lime, nitrogen, which is fertilizer, both are perfect. So our expected yield, 98% versus a yield potential of 100. Again, that difference is that 2% is rolling, which is one of the reasons I don't roll, because it just isn't impactful enough for the time you put into it. You know, so even on a field like we saw where we got 400,000, you know, we're going to get 8,000 liters more in crop for rolling, which is, you know, going to translate into $2,000 or something. And if I was to translate that into, I'd hire a contractor to roll, knowing that the field takes 2 to 3 hours to roll, it would cost me, you know, $15,000 to make 2, which obviously is a losing proposition. We've got another day go by, 70%. I believe this is the max the cows are going to be at. So if you recall, we had purchased them at $15.50. So I'm just popping over here to verify. $15.50. Obviously we didn't pay a delivery fee. So yes, so the cattle are, you know, basically covering their costs, but they're improving in the production output and still doing pretty well here. Hay, silage, straw, mineral feed, the 4 supplies I need to give, are doing great. But again, we only have 36 cows, so once this barn is maximized, things aren't going to be quite as relaxed, but I still think we're going to be in a much better position. So pretty excited about how things are going on the farm right now. I've got, you know, some ideas of how things will continue to evolve as this goes forward, but we're talking about, you know, probably years down the road where we'll make some changes, because a lot of this is dependent just on the cows getting to the point where we've got enough and we've got substantial production. Because right now we're 47,000, we're getting, you know, to the yellow where we're starting to get to our capacity about 50%, you know, so probably 100,000 or so is what I'll be able to store in milk. Looks like significantly more than that in slurry. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 400,000 in slurry. And so those are going to be the outputs of the cows. And once they're really cranking along, because if I had a full barn, I'd really be operating at about 6 times this capacity. So that 47,000, rounded to 50, would really be 300,000 liters of milk in the same time. But obviously then that would also have some higher consumption. So yeah, it's interesting that the screen here shows 97, but I show 98, when I'm looking at the values that I'm getting. I don't own any other fields than this, so it's interesting. I don't know that I've specifically seen that before, but not much else to share with you right now. I think we're going to have a pretty calm and easy season this year. So I'm going to probably take advantage of that and focus on some other areas of the work I do on the channel and so forth, and be back here when I need to be. But at this point, we're talking about 6 months before the crop is going to be ready, and I will be checking in tomorrow to make sure that there is nothing surprising with the weeds. But assuming everything goes as planned, there's not really anything to report. I mean, what we should be seeing, because what we had seen before precision farming was once we sprayed herbicide, especially now that we've sprayed it upon growing weeds. So the thing that changed it was spot and spray, because if you recall, I was spraying weeds right after planting and they didn't appear. This time I did it and they did appear. But I think given again how spot and spray see and spray technology would work, that would make sense. If nothing unique happens, there probably won't be anything other than a passing comment that everything worked. But you've now got the finances of precision farming specific here to Misty Hills and that field with the same crop. So, right now we're talking about a $14,000-$15,000 annual savings just in what we put in, and we may also see a increase in yield. So we'll see what happens compared to what we pulled off that field last time. But now that we've maximized things, we may be in a terrific space. And on top of it, if I choose to sell that wheat, if the purchase price is a little bit better here on the server, I'm getting a premium because of the environmental score. So as I said, feeling really good about where I am on the farm, feeling nice and relaxed for the first time in a long time. I guess I really didn't realize how much the pigs were requiring of my mental energy just to keep track of when I need to get on, what I need to look at, and trying to make time for them. And I'm trying to be realistic and understanding that the food consumption is going to be 6 times as fast once this barn is full, and so this may not be nearly as simple to do, but I also know that a lot of what I'm getting to supply this, really 3 out of the 4 items come off the north side of my field, and I can generate them in a day as opposed to waiting for crop like I had to do for the pigs. And the only thing that is a little bit less controlled that way or requires more planning is the straw. So because the mineral feed is just purchased, and the mineral feed is consumed very, very slowly. So even at a 6 times speed, picking up one load of that every once in a while should certainly be manageable. So I'm going to get going. I'm going to enjoy my time off here. Done pretty early here on this April morning, and I will see you next time.